What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants canceled practice the final 2 days of OTAs due to the air quality in New York, New Jersey area. But regardless, Wink Martindale, Brian Daboll still went out there to talk to members of the press and deliver some pretty solid quotes. Wink Martindale with a great one, referencing Ted Lasso, an awesome TV show that Alex and I both love. It just came to a close on Apple TV+, but phenomenal TV show. Wink Martindale is saying, "Be a goldfish," to Deonte Banks, an obvious reference to Ted Lasso, and a quote that I think we all should live our lives by. So we're going to go ahead today, react to some of these quotes from Wink Martindale about Deonte Banks and anything else that he discussed during that little quick presser that he did before the cancellation of yesterday's practice. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on Wink Martindale's quotes about Deonte Banks?
Look, Deontay Banks, and I tweeted this out today, the kid has unlimited potential. The fact that we got him at 24 overall still baffles me. The fact that Joe Shea managed to, secure a player of this quality and this upside. You saw the embrace that him and Wink Martindale had once it happened. Wink Martindale was like, dude, we just landed a stud. The guy has 4.35 speed. One of the best athletes at the position, the position has seen in a decade. He has the third highest athletic score in the last decade among cornerbacks, and he was the best athlete in this draft class. You can't go wrong there. You can't teach athleticism, but you can teach fundamentals. You can teach all the things that go into, learning the game better, visualizing things, understanding things during a play, before a play, and after a play. These are all the different variables that are going to help Deonte Banks elevate his game and succeed at the next level. I'm very high on Deonte Banks. I think that in a perfect world, our coaching staff, which I very highly believe in, Jerome Henderson's one of the best DB coaches. I mean, look at the fact that Fabian Moreau walked in as essentially a practice squad player last year and started for us and played admirably. Like, he wasn't awful. He was okay. And I think that says a lot about our coaching in the sense that we got a lot of guys that shouldn't be on NFL teams. You know what I mean? Like Nick McLeod, there's a good argument to make he shouldn't be on an NFL team. Zion Gilbert, that he suck? Absolutely. He shouldn't be on an NFL team, or at least he shouldn't have been last year. Still a lot of developmental prowess there and a lot of opportunity. But I think the Giants now have a little bit more depth. We talked about that extensively in a recent episode, just the overall hauling of the depth across the roster. The Giants, Nick McLeod's no longer starting. Zion Gilbert, who knows if he makes the roster? You have Aaron Robbins coming back from injury. Darnay, you've talked about him and his salary. He could be a cut candidate this offseason. We'll see if he can elevate his game. Cordell Flott, we all really like, so we're hopeful he can, attack a starting role there and win the starting slot job specifically. But Deonte Banks is a really fun player to consider because not only is he a good coverage player, but he's a great tackler. And I think that's something that Wink Martindale lives and breathes by because of his man coverage style defense. When you're playing an opposing offense and they're running outside zone, they're getting the running backs out there, those screen passes. You need cornerbacks that can be aggressive, that can evade blockers, that can make open field tackles. Deonte Banks missed one tackle last year over about 640 offensive snaps, or rather defensive snaps. So, you're looking at a player that doesn't miss tackles. He's aggressive. He prides himself in that aspect, and I think that's going to stand out. But the quote from Wink Martindale really is awesome, and I'll read it to you guys right now. He says, "It's crucial to have a cornerback like that in any defense. He's highly intuitive, as Ted Lasso would say. He lives life like a goldfish. He has a short-term memory when things go wrong. He's mentally tough, physically he can tackle, and he's also fast." So the idea behind thinking like a goldfish is that when you make a mistake, you don't want to linger on it. You don't want to keep reliving it. You don't want to keep it in the front of your mind, because usually when you're thinking about making a mistake or that you have made a mistake, you're going to make another one. If you live life like a goldfish and things go bad and something happens to you, it's best just to forget about it. It's best to put it to the back of your mind and let it go and move forward and live to see another day or another down if you're an NFL player. So, in Deonte Banks' case, love to see him forgetting things quickly. A mistake is a mistake, or even just getting beat. Every cornerback is going to get beat in the NFL. There's nobody in the league that's going to be successful 100% of the time. You need to let those things happen and kind of learn from it and move forward to the next play and put together a better opportunity for yourself and the team. So I love that quote. I think that it's right on par with what we need in this defense, and Deonte Banks has unlimited potential, in my opinion.
My opinion as well. I mean, you know how high I am on Deonte Banks. And keep in mind, this is a cornerback who, throughout his career at Maryland, only surrendered 50-plus receiving yards in one contest throughout his entire career. This is a lockdown cornerback. At least that's what the game tape and the stats from his collegiate career suggest. This is a guy who did not let receivers get the best of him very often. And, of course, when he did, he was a goldfish about it. He just instantly forgot, moved on to the next play, and made that next play. And Wink Martindale, furthering on that quote about the goldfish thing and having some more quotes about it, he was asked what the expectations are for Deonte Banks going into his rookie season when you're comparing him to the other New York cornerback, Sauce Gardner, who was picked in the first round last year, AP All-Pro cornerback in his rookie season. But Deonte Banks doesn't want to be compared to Sauce Gardner. He's going to do it his own way, and Wink Martindale had this to say about it. The expectation is that he plays football. Like I said, I brought up the Ted Lasso quote. That's the way he is. He's a smart kid that is grounded and doesn't make it bigger than what it is. I'm sure that they're going to catch an 8-yard out on him, and everybody's going to be up in arms, but that happens to every corner. We'll be okay. I think the expectation is to go in there and play well. So, not setting super high expectations for Deonte Banks, not expecting him to burst onto the scene the way that Sauce Gardner did. And I think that's the right mindset to take here. Giants fans, Giants coaches, you don't want to look at this kid and just expect him to have that otherworldly impact that Sauce Gardner had. That's unrealistic. And setting unrealistic expectations on a corner can affect their confidence and affect the way that they play. I think we saw that a little bit with Eli Apple during his rookie season with the New York Giants. When the Giants drafted him out of Ohio State, he had a lot of great traits in there, but he was so shook. His confidence was so shook so early on, and the fans did not do anything to help Eli Apple with that regard. I mean, always going after him on Twitter, always having their comments to make about Eli Apple. I think that when you look at a cornerback and you set too high of expectations for them to be this lockdown guy from day one, you're probably setting yourself up for failure, setting yourself up to get your expectations smashed. But I think with Deonte Banks, I'm not going to expect him to go out there and just be locked down every week in and week out. Listen, he did a phenomenal job at college. He locked down some of the best wide receivers in the nation, but those are collegiate wide receivers. Going into the NFL, there's going to be games where he's going up against an A.J. Brown and a duo of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That's not going to be easy, okay? He's going to struggle. There are going to be plays. A.J. Brown may score a touchdown on Deonte Banks, but that does not deter me from Deonte Banks. That does not make me lose confidence in him, because you look at all the traits, look at his coverage skills, long term, I think this kid pans out absolutely, and I do think he'll be a solid player in his rookie season. Again, I don't think he's going to be an all-pro, an elite player. I didn't expect that for Sauce Gardner either. That was a surprise that he did that. Some people expected that for Jeff Okudah, and now Jeff Okudah is on a different team and was a bust after 3 seasons with the Detroit Lions. So you really don't know in the NFL draft, and you can't set expectations too high on these quarters, because I think that quite often can be the reason that they fail, and I think Jeff Okudah might be kind of an example of that. So I think Wink Martindale, that quote about not setting too high of expectations other than just trying your best and playing well, that's the right mindset to take, and I think that will help Deonte Banks have a good rookie season alongside Adoree Jackson. And I think that's another aspect of Deonte Banks that's really exciting here, is that he doesn't need to be a CB1 in year one. You know, he's not stepping into this defense having to be the primary cornerback who goes and shadows the primary wide receiver of the opposing teams. He has to be the secondary cornerback, while Adoree Jackson is your primary cornerback. And I think that's a big deal for Deonte Banks as he develops in this rookie season and gets used to the pro speed, this pro style of the game. So Alex, what are your thoughts on that? You know, the fact that Deonte Banks doesn't need to be CB1 in the Giants defense. They can kind of take this rookie season, allow him to learn his lessons, take his losses on the chin, and not have to take too big of losses against the best wide receivers in the NFL. I think that he personally benefits a lot from going against the wide receiver twos of the offenses rather than having to lock down the primary guy. But what are your thoughts on that concept for Deonte Banks in his rookie season?
I mean, I love the fact that he's going to be having that mentor, kind of leadership from Adoree Jackson. And that 1 year, for what it's worth, is essential for him to learn the most possible, because Adoree Jackson probably realizes this, but he's training Deonte Banks to replace him. And it's kind of unfortunate for Adoree to realize and recognize that, because he's 27 years old in the middle of his prime. Only reason he got injured last year was probably the dumbest move the Giants management has made in that first season by using him as a punt returner, mind-blowing dumbness. And we all can agree with that. We all know how foolish that was. They don't regret it. I do. And I know you do. But I'll tell you this right now. Adoree Jackson is probably training him to be the CB1 next year, and I think that's the likely scenario, because The Giants likely want to go in a different direction, maybe go after a guy via trade or get someone that's maybe a little bit cheaper. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know what the direction they're going to go is. Maybe they hope Cordell Flott takes a big step forward and becomes a CB2. Who knows? There's so many things that could happen over the next year. Maybe they end up extending Adoree Jackson and saving a couple bucks. Maybe they want to reset and go after a younger option that's coming off a rookie deal at 24 or 25 years old, and get someone younger who's going to be a long-term piece alongside Deonte Banks. But I think they project Banks to be a CB1. They must have ridiculous confidence in Deonte Banks, because the fact that they don't have Adoree Jackson locked in for another season, maybe they franchise Adoree Jackson. Who knows? There's things they can do, but in my opinion, I think that the fact they haven't extended him and the fact they have money next year suggests they probably are going to move on, and they're kind of asking Adoree to train him to be a replacement. But then again, Adoree Jackson's 28 years old next season. He can cash in for another nice payday. I don't think that he's going to have a problem finding another nice contract on another team, because he's a good player. He's a legit CB1 in my opinion. Scheme related, I think he's a good man coverage corner. He can man up against those guys. We saw him have a couple of really good games against a couple of really good players. So I do believe in Adoree Jackson. I think that he's had a couple of injury history issues in the past, and he's probably some of the worst hands I've ever seen in a cornerback. The guy dropped 5 interceptions last year, but he gets a lot of pass breakups. He was very good in the run for us in 2022. It would suck to lose him, but I believe in this coaching staff. I believe that they have a plan up their sleeves at all times. I believe they have a strategy, and they certainly know what they're doing. So if all goes well and Deonte Banks takes that developmental step forward and he assumes that CB1 role next year, I think that's totally fine, as long as we have another kind of strategy in place, another job to do, another player to find or acquire. So I think that we certainly have a good situation in our hands. And I think that for the most part, the Giants have been trying to slowly let players that Dave Gettleman left behind go. They've been slowly getting rid of some of them, bringing back primary guys on really cheap deals. Look at Sterling Shepard. They brought him back on a veteran minimum deal. He's a captain. He's not a captain, but he's a leader in the clubhouse. He obviously makes a significant impact on the players around him, and even as he's a player coach in a way at the same time. Other guys, you watch Julian Love walk. We're watching what's happening with Saquon right now. Daniel Jones is one of the only guys, and Dexter Lawrence that they extended, guys that they kind of had to extend and bring back. But some of those other players are certainly on the ways out. And I think Leonard Williams is probably following that same suit, if we're being honest. Him and Adoree probably are gone, and they allocate that money towards guys Joe Shane wants, and not what Dave Gettleman wanted, which I think is a totally fine strategy to go by, in terms of he just wants his own guys on his own contracts, if that makes sense.
I think that makes plenty of sense, and when you look at the way that the Giants are constructing this roster, they are definitely getting rid of a lot of the Gettleman guys and bringing in their own guys, and I'm all for that. I think that there's a certain mindset that this GM has that differentiates from the last GM, this head coach has that differentiates from the last head coach. So it's all about the mindset and the culture that they're trying to build. And right now, we're all really confident in the culture that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are building. So they can get rid of those old guys and bring in their new guys, and I'll be confident in them, because I think that they're building it the right way. Primarily, they're building through the draft. I think also what you're seeing is a lot of these guys that Gettleman had that the Giants are moving on from, they aren't moving on from by just patching it up with some veteran free agent. They're moving on from these players with draft picks. They're getting some younger guys in there who could take the role on a more long-term basis, like Deonte Banks, hopefully stepping in and taking over that CB1 spot from Adoree Jackson. But I will say, for what it's worth, with Adoree Jackson and his mentorship abilities, the way that he's kind of taken on that role and started to help Deonte Banks get used to the NFL, I think that's important for Adoree Jackson. It's definitely important for Deonte Banks having a mentor like that, but I think it's also important for Adoree Jackson if he does want to be here long term, because I think that the Giants coaching staff will take notice of that and say, listen, this guy's a leader. He's important to our locker room and our defense. After his contract expires this upcoming season, they might reevaluate and say, we need that leadership. Even more than we need his ability to play football, even more than we need his talent, we need that leadership. And so I think that Adoree Jackson could be earning himself a second contract here with the Giants, not only because of the way that he plays, but because of the way that he leads. And I think that's going to be a pretty important factor when the Giants next offseason are taking a look at this roster, seeing where can we improve, who can we move on from, they might have a tough time moving on from Adoree Jackson if he puts together a really solid 2023 season, in addition to the fact that he spent a lot of his free time this season coaching the rookie Deonte Banks. And for what it's worth, I mean, the Giants have a lot of young defensive backs on this roster, have a ton of young corners. I mean, Darnay Holmes, again, he's on the roster bubble. He's only entering his 4th season. Cordell Flott going into year 2. Aaron Robinson going into year 3, but neither one of those guys have seen significant playing time. A lot of young cornerbacks that need mentorship. And Adoree Jackson stepping up to the plate, leading these young guys is very important and something to take note of when you're looking at his long-term future with the team. So I don't think that Deonte Banks, the addition of Deonte Banks, necessarily means that the Giants are absolutely moving on from Adoree Jackson next year. I think what it means is they have a long-term solution at the CB1 position. Plus, he could take over at CB1, and maybe Adoree Jackson takes a step back into that CB2, watches the student become the master sort of situation. And I think that would be really exciting. It's kind of what we're all hoping for with Deonte Banks. Again, I'm super confident Deonte Banks, his athleticism, it'll wow you. His ability to track balls in coverage and stay close to wide receivers and man coverage, I think all of that stuff is phenomenal, and I really do see elite CB1 potential out of this kid as he progresses throughout his career, and I just can't wait to see him take the field again for the New York Giants. Mandatory minicamp next week. Hopefully the fog will be out of the air, the smoke will be out of the air, and the Giants will be able to hit the practice field. If that is the case, of course, we will be updating you on everything going on at mandatory minicamp right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one.